time.
Yeah, no worries.
All right. So, Elliot, thanks for jumping on, mate. Welcome to the Fitness Burrito Podcast. So this is going to be episode 2 of season 2. So I think this has been a long time coming, to be honest. I remember when I first started the podcast, even before, and I remember walking by in the gym and going, guess what I'm doing? And you're like, what? And I was like, I think I'm starting a podcast. And then you're like, fuck off, I'm starting a podcast. And I remember we just laughed on the gym floor. And yeah, since then, man, the rest is history. So
yeah.
Just a quick intro for obviously anybody who doesn't know you, and I'll just kind of tee that off, then you can jump in, mate. So I'm super pumped to have Elliot on the podcast today. Elliot Miller. He used to be a PT at my gym. Just briefly, because I was working at a different gym and I moved over to manage this one, and Elliot had been killing it for a long time. He's a great guy, great coach, speaks his mind, which is rare sometimes in the fitness industry. And yeah, so super pumped to have you on, mate. So Elliot, just to build on that, just tell the people, where you're from, what you're about, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Dan, I'm just like, I'm not happy that you've waited this long to get me on. So,
Yeah.
Let's just make that clear. No, so yeah, not much else to say. Like, I met Dan through Pure Gym. He was my manager for a very brief time. He wasn't the reason why I left.
Yeah, let's set that straight.
So, yeah. That's what I tell people anyway. No, but yeah, being in the industry for 2.5 years, just under 2.5 years. I work specifically with men now. Nothing against women. I've worked with loads of amazing women in the past, but kind of found my niche a little bit, working with out of shape men, unmotivated men who basically want to lose weight and get in shape physically and mentally. And yeah, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. That's who Train with Elliot is.
Nice. Yeah. So I remember seeing like all your first t-shirts and all your merch coming out. So Elliot, he still does. He's got these Train with Elliot t-shirts, and like you walk around the gym still and you'll have loads of clients with them in my gym in Leeds. But yeah, I think one of the big reason I want to get Elliot on today is because obviously, like in the past, a lot of my guests have been mostly talking about women, and a lot of the things we talk about applies to both women and men, but I think it's rare sometimes that you get a coach come on who just solely works with men. So I thought, you know what, it'd be great to have you on. I know you know your stuff. So we're just going to dive into it. So we have a few topics we'll go through today. The first one I want to kick off today was, just to talk about men, the obstacles, the barriers that sometimes maybe they have or that your clients have. So I guess the first question, Elliot, would be, having worked with so many guys, continuously working with them, what's kind of the common themes, barriers, obstacles that you tend to get with those guys? And I guess off the back of it is like, how do you tackle them, overcome them?
Yeah, good question, mate. So I think the first one is definitely like body confidence issues. Like there's this whole like body positivity movement online, but it's only females like talking about it. And like, again, nothing against that. I think it's brilliant, like the whole body positivity, body confidence thing. But there's not much about body confidence for men. And speaking, like, I've been in contact and spoken, worked with like over 100 guys, and one common thing is that men aren't happy with the way they look. But because, of course, we're men, and men apparently don't speak about their feelings, because apparently that's not what men do, which, by the way, is complete bullshit. One thing is definitely like the body confidence side of things, like wanting to look better, wanting to be more attractive to the wife, the girlfriend, to the opposite sex, to like people on holiday or whatever it is. So definitely like the body confidence thing, because it's just not talked about enough with men. And I know you actually did a post not that long ago on this, saying that like men feel it too. I think it was something like that you put. And I couldn't agree more with what you were saying. Like, we struggle with like image issues ourselves as well. So definitely that's the number one thing. Second thing, this might surprise people, but like it pops up in almost every single conversation that I have with guys who want to lose weight and get in shape is the lack of consistency. Like they just can't seem to stay consistent. Like they'll try something, like after a couple of weeks they'll give up. Like they can't really motivate themselves. So lack of consistency and motivation. And I think the best way we kind of tackle it, first thing, the motivation side is we go really, really deep on goal setting inside my program. And when I say goal setting, I don't just mean like, oh, you know, I want to lose a little bit of weight, or I want to get to like, I want to drop a t-shirt size or whatever. We go a little bit deeper than that. So like, and again, this goes back to men not fully like opening up. Like whenever I ask a guy like what do you want to work with me for? What's your goal? Guaranteed they'll just say weight loss. And I'll say, well, yeah, but like, why weight loss? Why do you want to lose the weight? Oh, you know, just to feel a little bit better. And like, we have can't get my words out, a specific set of questions that I ask these guys that just like helps them go really, really in depth and really detailed as to why they want to lose weight, because the solution isn't weight loss. The goal isn't really weight loss. It's what weight loss will give them. That's the result that they're looking for. So by asking like specific questions, like, you know, who else will it impact around you? Like, what will be the cost of not achieving this goal? You know, all these kinds of deep questions. You know yourself, Dan, the kind of questions that we ask. Just to really, really get a deep level understanding of why they want to get in shape. And then that kind of ties in with the body confidence issues, because they start to open up then. And then all the answers they give me based on these questions, we kind of use that as leverage. So like on days where they don't necessarily feel that motivated, like usually if they didn't have a coach, they'd just give up. Like based on what they've told me, they'd give up. But because we've got the answers and the reasons why, that's the leverage and the only real motivation that they'll need, really. We call it a motivation activator. So on days where, because let's face it, we're not always motivated. Anyone who says there are, it is full of shit, basically. So we call it a motivation activator. So if whenever they're feeling like they can't be asked going to train, can't be asked hitting the steps or logging the food or whatever, they've got these answers to refer back to whenever they want. And then they can literally say to themselves, well, right, if I don't do what I'm supposed to do today, here's a big, huge list of things that might happen if I don't do it. And that's really the only motivation they need. And up until now, it seems to have worked pretty well. So that's what we kind of do to kind of overcome these barriers, I suppose.
Yeah. And I think, you know, I've had other coaches and even I had a few life coaches on a podcast on season 1, and they went deep into the whole finding your why and asking the questions. And if you're listening to this podcast and you've listened to previous podcasts, hopefully by now you've realized how important it is to really break down and be honest about what it is you're trying to achieve. And a couple of things that was quite good about what you mentioned was that you give them, or they almost have all these consequences of not achieving it written down to help them stay consistent. And that's actually something that I didn't really do before with my clients, but in terms of just me reminding them, and I started doing that in the last couple of months, where I just asked them, you know, what is the next kind of 3 to 6 month goal? Why is that important? Right? Kind of like you said, what's that feeling going to be like of you achieving it? And out of 10, where do you kind of see yourself right now? And people that said like 5 or 6s and then broke down why they feel like a 5 or 6, I kept that right up. And every now and then when I see them like missing a workout on the training program, or I see them not tracking a few things that they should be tracking, I'll take that screenshot or I'll take that message and I'll send it to them. I was like, remember when you wrote this, you told me you felt like fucking shit and you only feel like a 5 out of 10. And you said that your life kind of sucks right now. Like, and I'm not even exaggerating because that's what they wrote. Then you're like, well, what are you doing? And then they're like, shit, yeah, you know what? You're right. And I think that's a huge thing. Yeah. It's a huge thing that I wish I would have done a long time ago. And I think that's great that you're doing as well. And, you know, for all the guys out there, don't be afraid to open up and chat to another guy, man. That's huge.
Yeah.
Especially nowadays. I think this one kind of then drops into the second topic kind of question I had, which was, in your opinion, then what's the best way to help the guys change that behavior or just form new habits? So obviously having everything written down, their why, but is there anything else that you guys kind of do, you know, together, or even with your clients, to go, all right, let's try to create new habits? And like, how do you keep them accountable that way, maybe without the write-up?
Yeah. So I think first thing with any kind of habit change for me, like awareness is key. Like you've got to understand what your bad habits are. Because again, like I've had conversations with guys and they've not really gone into detail about like why they're overweight, why they're in such bad habits. Like I speak to guys and they're saying, oh yeah, well, you know, I'm eating healthy, I'm eating clean, you know, all this kind of stuff. And I'm saying, well, why have you come to me to lose weight? Why are you overweight? Like, you know, you're telling me you want to lose this weight, but then you're telling me that you're eating healthy and you're eating clean and you're doing everything you can. Like, you're fucking lying. You're not. Like, let's, you know, if this is going to work, it's a two-way thing. If this is going to work, you need to be open, honest, and transparent with me about what these particular bad habits are of yours. So being aware of and being really, really honest with yourself is number one for me, because unless you're like brutally honest with yourself, you're never really going to change. You've got to understand what you're currently not doing right in order to like change that. So that's the first thing we'll look at. We'll look at like making them aware of their triggers, bad habits, trigger foods, whatever. Then we'll look at their lifestyle. Like, what are they, right from what are they eating at breakfast? What are they doing at work? Like, obviously we're in lockdown now, but let's say, for example, they work on a building site. A lot of builders naturally will go to a cafe. They'll have a bacon and sausage sandwich every morning, like mid-morning. You know, they might be buying lunch. There's healthy ranges of lunches to buy from in shops, but the chances of you buying them are, you know, a little bit less. So, you know, can we look at maybe prepping your food for work? You know, all these little things and we look at what they're currently doing in their lifestyle and how we can maybe swap things out. What are you doing when you get home from work? Are you waiting till the evening to work out? Could we possibly like get your gym clothes out ready, put them in a place where they're visible, so that when you get home from work, the first thing you lay eyes on is your gym clothes, so you can put them straight on. You're more inclined to work out, and just finding little ways that we can instill new habits that don't seem too difficult. Because I think if I throw a load of training principles, right, you need to be hitting 10,000 steps bang on every single day. You need to be drinking 2.5 liters of water, you know, giving them too many targets is just going to overwhelm them. And especially when a guy's told me that they can't stay consistent, if they've got too many things to do, they're just not going to do it. So we need to look at where we can instill just little behaviors here and there that will eventually compound over time and result in, like, you know, ingraining it as a habit, so that eventually it becomes second nature. You know, stuff like, you know, when you go into work, where are you parking in the car park? That's an old favorite of a lot of personal trainers to get the steps in. Park at the far end of the car park, you know, take the stairs. When you go shopping, park at the far end, you know, take the long way around the aisles when you shop, you know, all these little things, Dan, you know, as you know yourself, just instilling these little habits so that they become second nature, and just give the guys confidence that it's actually a lot easier than they think.
Yeah. Do you ever kind of tell a guy, all right, we're going to do like just the clothes on the bed, and I want you to do that for a whole week. And if we miss one day, we're like starting over. Like we have to nail it for a week. And then once we nail it that week, we're like, okay, now we're going to do clothes on the bed, and we're going to go, you have a whole bottle of water ready or something. Right.
Yeah.
And you just keep like, do you ever do that? Like sometimes I've done that with guys in the past or girls, but I'm just curious if you ever do that.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that, Dan, because a particular client springs to mind. Is working from home. He's been working from home throughout entire lockdown, and he was saying he couldn't really get motivated to work out from home. By the time he'd finished working, he'd just want to sit down and watch TV. So a lot of people who work from home can wear what they want. Like, they don't require like smart workwear like they would if they were in the office. So I said, listen, when you wake up, put your gym gear on, sit at your office desk, do your working from home in your gym gear, so that when you finish, what's the first thing that you're more likely to do? You know, work out. On days where you're not working out, why don't you leave your walking shoes or your trainers by your desk? So the first thing that you do is put your shoes on and go out for a walk. And like, it worked. It worked. Like, it worked a lot more than I realized it would. And it's such a simple concept. Like, you know, just making the habit visible and making it easy, which is something that I learned from a Atomic Habits. I'm pretty sure you'll have read that, Dan.
Yeah, I was just about to drop that book there.
Yeah. Just make it visible and make it easy. And like, that's to this day the best book I've read. And it's just
so good.
The concept of it is so simple as well. And like, a lot of it transfers over into like coaching and, you know, working with people like we do. And one thing we also do is we have visible habit trackers. So I say to them at the start of every month, like when we have like a monthly review, I say, right, how many workouts do you want to do this month? How many days do you want to hit your steps? So we don't have a goal of 10,000. We aim for between 8 and 12. Because I think having a rigid number like can set people up for failure a lot of the time. So we aim for between 8 and 12. So how many days do you want to hit your steps? How many days do you want to log your calories? Just those 3 things. And let's say, I don't know, someone wants to work out 4 times a week and there's 4 weeks in the month. That's 16 workouts. So all they'll write 0 out of 16. Let's say they want to hit the calories 6 out of 7 days. That's 24 days in the month. So they'll write 0 to 24. Let's say they want to hit the steps 5 out of 7 days. That's 20 days across the month. So we'll put 0 out of 20. And every single time they complete one of those things, they'll just tick it off and it'll say 1 out of 20. Then once they've done another 2 out of 20, another 3 out of 20, so on and so on. And they're literally seeing visible progress every single day. So I'll get them to either keep it in the phone or like write it down in a notepad. And every single day they're ticking another one off. They're seeing that number creep up. So whilst we can't see physical progress on a daily basis, that's obviously a longer process. We can see progress within our habits. So then when it comes to the end of the month and we're comparing pictures, if they're not happy with how they look, we've got the data to refer back and say, right, well, let's see how many workouts you've actually completed. Let's see how many days you've hit your steps, calories, and so on. And then if they haven't ticked off as many days as they set out to, then we know that they've not done what they've said they're going to do, basically. So we'll course correct there. But like, and this works for me, like my own personal progress so far in 2021, physically, business, you know, all different areas, has been like amazing, literally just down to the fact that I've got visible progress in front of me and I'm ticking stuff off on a daily basis. Like our brains love to look for progress, right? Mm-hmm. And if I'm ticking something off on a daily basis and getting closer to a target, it just instills a bit of confidence and belief that like I'm on track. So that's been a game changer, absolute game changer.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really cool and yet simple concept. Because I remember like, you know, having just kind of met you, you know, the last probably 2 years ago. And like, I saw you a few times and obviously like, you know, managed the gym where you were at. And we spoke a little bit more. And I used to always see you kind of post stuff about like how your guys were just always on it and how you had your, you know, you had your own little diaries. And I used to always wonder, I was like, what the fuck is Elliot doing? Like, I just want to know what he's doing. You know what I mean? And
there
like,
you go, Dan. There you go.
Yeah. And so, but like, it makes a lot of sense now when I think about like a lot of stuff that you've posted and you've talked about in your clients, because I'm just thinking about it even now for me. I'm like, yeah, that would work really well for me because my personality is somebody who writes something down on the list to cross it off immediately just because I know I did it. Right.
Yeah. Because you get like from it. Right.
Yeah. And like, that's because that's like that, you know, if you've ever heard of insights before, if people don't know what that is, it's like, you know, you got yellows, greens, reds, and blues. And I'm a yellow, and yellow's very fucking like, you're out there, you're social butterfly. You like write shit down just to mark it off. Like that's me. But I can see how just for the average person going 0 out of 24, and then the next week going, oh wow, I'm already 6 out of 24, and I'm only a week in.
Yeah.
That means I've got 3/4 of the month left. I've got a few days here and there to be flexible, but I'm still on track. Is really powerful, I think. So no, that's awesome. That's cool, man. Thanks for sharing that little bit.
You're welcome.
So, and also on Atomic Habits, like if you haven't read the book, it doesn't matter if you're a coach or you're not a coach, go read that book. It's so good. I recommend all my clients read it when I start working with them. It's in this like course I made that we even give out to the corporate guys we work with. There's loads of stuff. And one of the things I was in there, because one of the big things I think Elliot mentioned at the very beginning is, with habits, he tends to focus on the environment, which is one of the easiest things to change first before kind of going about like, 12,500 steps in 180 grams of protein. Like you can do that with some people, but not everybody does right away. But one of the things I remember in Atomic Habits, I don't know if you do, is the guy was like, just put your shoes on for 3 seconds. I forget what it was, like 3 seconds.
Yeah.
And if you want to take them off after 3 seconds, take them off.
Yeah.
And then he's like, then next time try to put them for 10 seconds. He's like, eventually you're just going to put them on and go, well, fuck it, I might as well go for a walk now. Yeah. And I was like,
so simple.
So simple. So no, sweet, spot on for that one. Side tangent over. So next kind of question, and this probably ties in great with obviously all the stuff that you do with the guys and that you've been doing yourself lately. If you had to lose 50 pounds right now, right? And there's a lot of guys out there that might need to lose even more than that.
Yeah.
How would you start? And like from start to finish, what would be that process? Like, what would you focus on? And I want to try to keep this simple. I know you will anyways, right? But what would be like the main things you would try to do consistently, most days to try to get that 50 pounds off?
Yeah. Basically everything we've just spoke about.
Yeah.
The goal setting, start with the goal setting, figure out why it is you want to like achieve 50 pounds, a 50-pound loss. Then once you've got your goal set, figure out, so let's say 50 pounds, it's going to take anywhere from 6 months to a year, right? Depending on the person, depending on how much weight they have to lose, etc., etc. Let's say a year, right? So that's your long-term goal. Can we break that down into quarters maybe? So let's break that down into 90 days. So the first 90 days, what do we want to achieve? Let's say, so bad math, 12.5 pound. Is that right? Yeah, that's a quarter of it, isn't it? Yeah,
I think so.
Let's say the first 90 days, we want to aim for 12.5 pound loss. So that's our 90-day target. Now we need to break that down into monthly targets, and then it comes into the habits thing that we spoke about there. How many workouts do you want to do a month? How many days do you want to hit your calories? How many days do you want to hit your steps? Break that down, tick them off on a daily basis. Before you know it, a month will be in, you'll probably lost 4-5 pounds, maybe even more. And literally just repeat that process. Simple as that. Like, honestly, I could sit here, Dan, and talk all day about calorie deficit. You need to lift weights. You need to eat this amount of protein. I could go on all day about that, right? Mm-hmm. But the thing is, everyone knows how to do that. Yeah. Everyone knows what they need to do to lose weight. The thing what I think people are missing is a strategy and a process to do it, right? Google weight loss. The first thing that will come up is a calorie deficit. Right, we all know how to lose the weight, but I think we've got a fly interrupting me.
Spring's coming.
Yeah, I think a lot of people struggle with the process and a strategy behind doing it. So literally, obviously, you need to figure out what your calories are. We can talk about finding exercises that you enjoy doing, all that kind of stuff. But for the most part, like I've just said, set your goals, break that yearly goal down into 90-day goals, quarter goals, break that down into monthly goals, and then you've obviously got your daily and weekly targets, steps, workout, nutrition, repeat for a year. Don't focus too much on the end goal and it's funny because I put a post on, I think it might have been yesterday, talking about should you be aiming for a target weight number? Mm-hmm. For me, I don't think you should. I think you should always maybe have a number in mind, as an end goal, but don't just focus solely on that end goal because you're always going to set yourself up for failure. Focus on the processes that's going to get you there. Focus on the first pound. Once that's off, focus on the second pound, then the third one, and so on and so on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's very good advice, very simple. And I would even add on to that to say I've got 2 clients, one who's more basketball specific. He's not a pro or anything, just an average guy. And another one who's a bit older. He's, he owns his own business. He's doing really well. And those 2 guys have both probably lost about 15 to 20 pounds in, nice. I don't know, the last 2 to 3 months that we started working together. And I don't think we've talked about, how many calories they've had per day once. It's only been literally what you talked about. We just really focused on talking about why it mattered, and then talked about being more aware about their food choices, about their environment. You know, one of them stopped smoking, not even because I even like asked him to or even talked about it. He just realized like, this is actually not good for me, because we started having more open conversations. And then off the back of what you said, it's like, they're just focusing on the process rather than going, okay, I need to hit this, I need to hit that. I'm just enjoying it. So yeah, I think for a lot of guys out there, what Elliot just said, it's really that simple. So try not to kind of go into all these crazy things that you see on social media and in the fitness industry about, you know, the next kind of fad diet and, you know, shiny thing that's going to make it easier. It's just that simple. And like you said, everybody knows how to do it. Everyone knows how to do it.
You know what the crazy thing is as well, Dan? People will listen to this and they'll think he's full of shit. Like, what I just said then is boring. Like, doesn't sound sexy at all. Yeah. And it doesn't sound appealing, right? Like, and it's crazy. Like, what I spoke about works. How do I know it works? Excuse me. It works because that's what I do. That's what I'm doing on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis. This is why I'm helping so many people get amazing results, because it works, right? But it sounds boring, and no one likes boring, you know? No. But yeah, listen, if anyone's watching thinking I'm full of shit, come and work with me and I'll prove you wrong.
Exactly. And just before we go on to the last bit, I was just curious, it's been in my mind for a while. Obviously, having worked with both men and women, what is it about working with men that, from a communication standpoint, that's so different? Because obviously when you work with women, and, you know, I think the way we communicate with them, especially, well, for me anyways, as clients, sometimes can be a little bit different. What is it about guys that you find, like, what do they react really well to? And what do they find like, what are you surprised about sometimes when you say something to them, like in a certain manner, in a certain tone, and you think, oh, wow, that wasn't received properly? Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. And I think the main difference for me is, like, you can basically tell men what they need to do and they'll just do it. Women will as well, but women are more inquisitive. They want to know, they want to kind of understand the reason why a lot more. Why this many calories? Like, why do you want me to, like, do this many steps? Why am I doing this specific workout? Like, women question things a lot more. And I think just based on experience from when I've worked with women, like, there might be women watching this who can't relate to what I'm about to say, but they're a lot more emotionally invested in what the scales read. And like, me just telling them that the scales don't matter and that, like, fat loss isn't reflected on the scales isn't really enough to undo years and years of worrying about what the scales say. And listen, don't get me wrong, I've helped loads of women get amazing results as well. And I've loved working with women whilst I did. But the best results, I've yielded the best results simply working with guys. And I think as well, like, a lot of the guys that I work with have gone through similar struggles to what I once did as well. So there's that little bit of relatability there as well. And I think us guys were just like things to be really simple and straightforward, you know. And that's what I do as part of my coaching. I keep it really simple, really straightforward, really easy to understand. And yeah, it just seems to work really well.
Yeah. And this isn't me, by the way, for any girls or guys. I'm not trying to, like, have a dig about any gender here. I just think, like, personally, like Elliot said, I think the girls that I work with ask more questions, want to know more. Like you said, sometimes they're a bit more emotionally invested in certain things. Whereas guys, like, sometimes you just have to fucking tell them, like, bro, like, what are you doing? Like, stop doing that. And then they're like, oh yeah, that's pretty stupid. And you're like, yeah. And then they're just like, it's like it's a switch. It's just a different switch. So I just thought I'd ask to see if you kind of think the same.
Yeah. And I think as well, Dan, I think, like, my kind of coaching style and my personality is more suited to men. Like, because it's quite direct, like, you know, kind of no nonsense. Like, if they're not doing what they should be doing, like, you know, I'm calling them out. Like, I'm not there. They're not paying me to be my friend. They're paying me for a result. So I'm calling them out on it. And, like, in the past, like, my style, the way it's come across to, like, women I've worked with in the past, like, they sometimes receive it a little bit differently as well. So yeah, I think that's another reason as well.
Yeah, defo. Awesome. No, thanks for that, man. I thought it'd be a good question to ask to get your opinion. So
Yeah.
that leads us kind of onto the final point. And I thought, so every kind of podcast I do, Elliot, I always want to try to bring up like a study or a research article or something. Yeah, just because like, I don't know, I kind of like bringing those things up, and I want to give people maybe something that's got a lot of substance behind it. That's not just me chatting shit and potentially you chatting shit. So what I wanted to bring up was actually talking about protein a bit, because obviously, like, I would say with guys, like, the biggest thing that you see every guy do is talk about protein. Like in the gym, they're like, I got you. You see them with their protein shake before the workout, after the workout. They're buying stuff from the vending machine. Like, it just seems like there's like a bit of an obsession with how much protein they're getting and if they should be hitting a number. And I don't know. Obviously, now I know with your guys, they're probably not overly bothered about that. Like, there's not necessarily a target. I'm sure they think about like, I should eat more during the day. And one big thing that recently came up with some of my clients was, they started buying casein, right? Because they've heard about it and somebody told them about it. So I thought I'd bring up a bit of a study about casein, and we won't spend too much time on it. But basically this study, what they did is they looked at two groups of people, and they gave one group of people casein in the afternoon. And they gave the other group of people casein at nighttime before bed, right? Everything else was controlled. So your overall intake of protein was the same. So let's say that was 100 grams of protein, to make it simple, was the same across both groups, even with the casein. The training was the same. They monitored everything. And in this study, there was no kind of significant difference between people that took casein in the afternoon or in nighttime. And I think, just to give people context, there's always been this probably opinion in the fitness industry, and you could probably kind of back this up, Elliot, where a lot of people think, oh, if I eat like casein specifically, which is more of like a slow digesting protein, for people wondering what that is if you have that at nighttime, it's going to be better for you because you're sleeping, you're recovering, it maintains protein balance in the body, which means that you might be getting gains while you're sleeping, right? So how many times have you heard that before?
Yeah, I actually used to buy casein supplement, like when I was back in my like raw days. I'd mix it like with milk before, and like down a shake before I went to bed. And I think for me, like, if studies, like, for me, they sometimes need more context. And I think before you're going to kind of supplement casein, like, there's a lot more important things that you can put in place first. Like, for me, like you said, my guys, some of them have protein targets. Some, I literally just say protein source with every meal. Just aim for that. And I think there's more things that we can look at in terms of hydration. Like, are you even getting enough sleep? Like, because some people might only be sleeping 3-4 hours, and they're like having casein before they go to sleep. Like, when you're not even getting an ample amount of sleep. And by the way, sleep's a massively underrated tool, in my opinion.
Huge.
For any kind of fitness goal. So I think it could possibly serve a purpose. However, I think there's a lot more important things that we can look at first before we maybe look at supplementing that further down the line.
Yeah. And I think that goes for every supplement. So just to kind of add on this. So this was the first study to control training and daily protein intake, while comparing whether if you had protein at night versus during the day, if there would be a difference. So it was the first one. So there's been other studies to talk about casein. Some of them have actually shown to be a bit beneficial, but the way the studies were designed weren't that great. Like, they weren't as concrete in terms of like how they built it up and how they analyze all that stuff. So it's actually quite interesting. So the guys that did the study and the guys that analyzed the study and the service that I pay for, they actually still kind of encourage you to probably take casein at nighttime. Because they do think that in theory it might be beneficial. So the other thing just to keep in mind is, it's actually been shown that if people eat quite late at night, especially maybe if they're having like high content protein and fats or whatever, that might disrupt sleep slightly. So it's not for everyone either.
Yeah.
So I guess in a nutshell, if you're somebody who's, your bros told you, yo, mate, I'm taking casein at night. I'm taking like 60 G's before I go to bed. And he's like, my quads are definitely bigger, bro. It's only been a week. Like chances are it's probably not happening. And it's not going to hurt you really, but just be mindful. You don't need to go spend that money. So that's kind of what I wanted to throw out there today.
So I've got a quick one on that, Dan. So if someone's struggling to get protein in throughout the day, in your opinion, could that possibly be a solution?
Yeah, 100%. I would say, and I wouldn't even have to be. So the other thing that they mentioned in here was, it doesn't even need to be casein. Like if you decide to just take a lean meat, so lean steak, lean chicken, lean beef, whatever, and you want it to have 30 to 40 or whatever grams before you went to bed, then you can do that. And it's going to be the exact same thing. The big thing with protein at the moment, and a lot of the research coming out is, and again, this is probably going to go over the top of a lot of people's heads, but in protein, we have what's called leucine content, and leucine at the moment seems to be that like trigger guy that once he's in the body, like things start speeding up, like things start happening a bit more so than if you just maybe had another, content worth of protein that didn't have high content of leucine. Does that make sense?
Yeah. 100%.
So either or, I would say if you're even just me and Elliot, who, I consider ourselves above average athletes, we might be chatting shit there, but right. If you're just
certainly in my case.
yeah, exactly. If you're just like a random guy like we are, and you're just, your coach is telling you it might be worth upping a bit of protein, and the only kind of time you feel like that's realistic to do is by eating a bit of protein at night, you want to take casein, fucking fill your boots. It's not going to hurt you. And I think that'd be a great show, actually. So yeah, does that answer the question?
Yeah, mate, in detail. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Sound okay. Cool. So yeah, besides that, man, that's pretty much everything I want to cover. So I'm trying to keep the podcast Elliot Miller length, which is still way too long. Elliot usually goes like 10 minutes flat. I'm trying to keep them under an hour, but no, really appreciate you coming on. So just to kind of finish off, Elliot, I'll let you just kind of tell the people where they can find you, if they want to work with you, if they have any questions, or any guys out there. So where can people find you, mate?
Yeah. So first of all, mate, just in reply to what you said, thank you for having me on. I always find it a bit like weird and like humbling when people ask me to come on and do a podcast, even, like someone who I know, like I do you. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity, mate. In terms of where you can find me, like my main stuff is Instagram and Facebook, and it's at Train with Elliot. At the minute, I'm working just one-to-one with guys. So, if you liked what I had to say, if you follow me and like my content, drop me a message and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you've got. And just thanks again for having me, Dan.
Yeah, no problem. So as always, I'll put all the details in the notes, guys, so you can just go click it and go find Elliot. So as always, I'm Dan Q. You can check me out, Facebook, Insta at Abante Performance, doing a lot more basketball stuff out there. So any hoopers, if you know any basketball players, especially kind of the Leeds, Greater Leeds area, hit me up. So no, cheers, mate. Appreciate the time. And I'm just going to end this bad boy here.